All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar titled Digitalization Opportunities within the Hospitality Space. And yeah, a warm welcome here from my home office location in Berlin, Germany. My name is Philip. I'm heading up marketing at SuitePad. And yeah, I'll be your host for today. But let me introduce you to our two great speakers for today's discussion. Please meet Sushant Chavan and Tilman Volk. Yeah, Tilman is co-founder and managing director at SuitePad. Here we go. And Sushant is currently heading the research function at Ampolon Ventures, and he's scouting the emerging trends within prop tech. Yeah, just have a quick read about these two gentlemen here. And before we then start with our actual webinar or discussion, I've just got some few organizational notes for you. So we will try to make the webinar about 40 to 45 minutes long. We'll try to make it as engaging as possible. That means we have planned some kind of discussion, Q&A format, and not like a boring presentation. And so we encourage you to ask also questions that you have anytime during the webinar. So to do this, you will just use your chat and question function of GoToWebinar. Just send us the question, and I will then forward that immediately to Sushant and Tilman, and hopefully we can answer as many questions as possible. Yeah, one question that always comes up is about the recording. So yes, we'll be recording this session, and you will each receive a copy some days after the webinar at latest. Cool. With that, I'll jump in later for some questions from the audience, but without further delay, I'll pass it over to you, Tilman, and to you, Sushant. Enjoy the webinar, everyone.
Thanks, Philip.
Thank you, Philip. How are you, Tilman?
I am great, thank you. How are you, Sushant? How is Frankfurt?
Frankfurt is awesome. I was just amazed at how the power of internet can bring to have people who have never met, never heard of each other, and agreeing to sort of do something spontaneous and interesting, and try and make people see that there is a lot of interesting stuff happening within real estate and prop tech and even hospitality. What's your, sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I can't speak so much about the prop tech part, that's yours. But yes, for hospitality, it's been a crazy year. And I think digitalization is something I'm passionate about, and I'm really looking forward to getting into our conversation today.
Awesome. And you're coming to us live from which beautiful part of the world?
So you can't see it from here, but there are a bunch of mountains out there. I'm in South Tyrol. My wife is from here. So if you don't know about South Tyrol, it is a German-speaking part of northern Italy. They used to be part of Austria. And yeah, I'm sat here in the Alps working from here this week, enjoying this part of the pandemic, to be honest. But then, of course, back to Berlin on Monday. Quarantine has now been lifted, so that's good news.
I was just going to ask, like, are you completely disregarding all the travel advice?
No. That's something we've made very clear also in our team, and I'm really thankful that our team's been great. I don't know how it's been with you guys, but everyone's been really good with the rules, and also mask wearing at the office, and then of course also trying to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. And I have to say, now in Berlin things are picking up, so good news all around.
On this note, I'm actually reminded you guys did a really cool thing, dropping off Christmas presents for all your employees, and it's a really cool video that I saw on YouTube. So I think if nobody has checked it out, I think it's a really cool thing that you did. You and Moritz, both of you personally went to each employee's house and you dropped off Christmas gifts for them, and you drove through the streets of Berlin. So that was pretty cool.
That was a lot of fun indeed, yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about SuitePad, and let's sort of go slightly back in time. And all those who are present, I want to take everyone in a little bit of a time journey. The year is 2013, It's significant because this is the year when Sony actually launched PlayStation 4, and Microsoft
Wow.
also. Yeah. Uh, and it doesn't end there. Microsoft also launched Xbox One. So these two things happened pretty much in a span of 1 week of each other. So that's like one significant thing for technology in that year. This is also the year when Twitter went public.
I
Yeah,
didn't realize it's been that long. I could have
it's
sworn that was like 2016.
no, it was 2013. And then this is also the year when Apple launched the iPhone 5C and iPhone 5S, and they launched iOS 7. And this is significant because we're gonna talk about your sort of take on the whole open source market.
Wait,
And
remind me. The 5C was the plastic one, right?
yes,
And iOS 7, was that the really like poppy design? Man, that was
yeah.
up. Yes, yes, yes. But flat UI became a thing in 2013.
Yeah. I don't know if any of the attendees or anyone still has that phone with them. It'll be good to sort of hear if any one of you are Apple fans, if you've tried to collect each of the models that has been launched since the first one. So that was one significant year, and this is also the year when Twitter actually released Vine. I'm not sure if everybody knows Vine, but it was what, let's say, what TikTok is today. That was the 15-second video version by Twitter, and I think one of the biggest, a lot of people say one of the biggest mistakes Twitter did was shut down Vine.
I would agree. I think TikTok proves that point. Too bad for them.
True. And it doesn't end here. It was quite a significant year because this is also the year Google launched their prototype of Google Glass. I'm not sure if you remember and if people attending remember Google Glass.
Did you ever go and get one? Did you ever get a pair? Did you wear a pair ever?
I did wear a pair. I remember in that year I was on this all India train journey, and there was a Googler, as they like to call themselves, part of that, and he was carrying one. And we were all like, like how in school you had the school kid has like the latest toy, and you all want to be friends with him or her and be like, hey, can I try out your? So it was like that for me.
Really, for me, it was the other way around. So people wearing Google Glass at the time in Germany, if you guys are watching from Germany, lots of data privacy concerns. I might be filmed at any time by this camera on someone else's face. And I think you're right. At the time, people were like, wow, this is going to be cool. And there's so many cool AR type of use cases, and we can film everything we do. And for what reason, we're not quite sure. But I think then a year later already, it just seemed so uncool. It wasn't the cool kid at school. It was like the kid at school that got pushed around for wearing funny glasses. I think that's the turn it took, unfortunately. But I hear that Apple glasses are coming back. So maybe now the cool kids are getting on board.
I'm so amazed, and I don't know if it's some kind of I don't know if you've like gone through my research, but when you mentioned data privacy, do you remember why data privacy became a big issue in 2013?
GDPR, or what are you getting to? No, in 2020. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
2013. So 2013 is the year when Edward Snowden, for the very first time, revealed that NSA is snooping around pretty much everyone in the world.
I would argue in Germany, data privacy has been a thing since early 90s with the fall of the GDR. That left its mark, understandably, on the German soul, especially with people going through the archives and seeing what has been collected on them. And I think it still is with us somehow.
True. So I mean, it's interesting that so many of these dots are connecting, but now we are in 2013. It's a very interesting year. All of these technology developments are happening. And you and Moritz are at the WHU Idea Lab, and you have this idea of SuitePad, and you are in an event. You are all excited, all hyped up. You are pretty much telling everyone and anyone that you can find what the idea of SuitePad is. So I want you to now tell everyone what the idea of SuitePad was at that point of time.
So I think we have to set the frame a little more. You're absolutely right. We were hype at that time, and that was our alma mater. So Moritz and I both graduated from that business school, and the Idea Lab is a founders conference where founders come together, investors come, which is very crucial, and then lots of corporates who want to look very cool next to startups come as well and sponsor the whole thing. And then of course you have students there looking for internships with startups or become inspired for their own idea. And a few years before that, Moritz and myself were still, there helping out behind the scenes, with all sorts of stuff, or attending. Actually, I think we both attended, or at least I attended it the year before, and as a student, and just kind of was in awe of all these cool founders coming there. Most of them, of course, if you know a little bit about the VAU's history, very rocket centric. So copying other people's business models, pumping a lot of money into it, and then sometimes building something cool out of it, and sometimes not so sustainable. So coming there for us was really exciting. I think you can tell by that video where Moritz and I are interviewed that we're kind of hype. And at the time, our pitch was, in 5 years' time, so in 2013, looking forward to 2018, hotel rooms will be completely transformed. The guest directory, the spa brochure, the room service menu, the phone, the remote control, all that will be combined on a single device, and that device will be a SuitePad, and that's what we do. So that was our pitch back at the time.
Nice. And here we are in 2021, and how's the story shaped over these years?
It's been a very interesting journey, and we'll get into that in a second, I'm sure. But it's been an interesting journey from there. Some things have gone extremely fast, and others have just hardly changed at all. If we look at it, but I think the core, if we look at this kind of like bringing all things together on a single device, well, yes, that was a truth. Maybe not, 5 years afterwards, but now definitely. That for many hotels that we work with, the guest directory, the spa brochure, the room service menu, the remote control, the phone, all that is on the device. So we were able to do that, and that of course is really nice. I think one thing that is sometimes hard to wrap one's head around is just the way that digitalization works and the pace it works at. And I always get caught off guard of this myself. So if you think about it, sometimes you see these studies or blog articles or newspaper articles about the exponentiality of digitalization. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tim Urban. He runs a blog called Wait But Why, which I think is fantastic. And he spoke about like this kind of exponentiality. So exponentialism, it starts off in small steps, but then you quickly look away, and then suddenly it's skyrocketed. And of course, we all understand that when we look at a graph, but seeing it happen in an industry is something very, very different. So, and I think we're just in the beginning of digitalization happening in the hospitality field. And I think the best way to illustrate that is, if you took a person from the 1320s, we're talking Middle Ages now, and plugged them into the 1520s, they would function, right? Their horses, their carts, there's food, it's all kind of, it works. And they would maybe be a little bit confused by the 1520s fashion, but that's just about it. If you took from 1821 and transported them into 2021, that would be, that person would not be able to function, right? Like there's been 2 atomic bombs dropped in the meantime. There's been aerospace exploration. There's been the internet, electricity. So I think in our industry, it's the same thing on a very, very much smaller scale. If you and just looking back at 2013, maybe not so much has changed, but I think looking forward now, we're just at the beginning of the cusp of this upward tick. That's going to be really interesting.
I'm gonna give you like a quick opportunity to also tell everyone on the webinar what exactly does SuitePad does, because we may not get a chance to plug it again. So let's make most of it.
We're not here to sell. We're not here to sell today, but yes, of course, it makes sense to do a quick intro there. So I just talked about like bringing everything together on a single device. Well, that's not really what our vision is now. Now we say we want to help hotels engage their guests in a digital world. And we believe the best way to do that is through basically digital products. And the one that is also in our name, the SuitePad, is a tablet PC that stands in a hotel room, and you can pick it up and you can control your TV, of course. You can book your room service order, or book spot treatments, or just waive room cleaning. And we're already live in I think roughly like something like 60,000, a little bit more hotel rooms across the globe. So since 2013, we've grown a little bit there in that direction. And now, of course, we aim to just be this kind of front end between the hotel and helping them talk to their guests, really.
Interesting. I'm glad you brought in the numbers, and that's what I want to get to the next point of it, of scaling in an industry which is so personnel driven, which is so much dependent on running a very seamless, efficient operations, which involves a lot of people. So you have front desk, you have the back office, you have the restaurant, you have the sales team. So there are just so many components of running a hotel. How was it when you started knocking on doors of hotels and say, hey, me and my co-founder, we've built this solution to digitize the concierge service, and you can actually make your guest experience 10 times, 100 times more efficient by switching all the services that you offer through this digital setup that we have, and you can actually sell a lot more other services also. So how was it, when you started knocking doors on family-run hotels, boutique hotels, and then now when you are at, I think across 30 countries, how's this journey of, scaling the sales process has been?
Yeah. Sushant, you already say exactly correctly. It's a big change, right? So from what we started with those family-run hotels that you mentioned, is a completely different pitch to what it is for a hotel chain. And I think it's well illustrated. If you think back again now to 2013, we were just getting started, and we were looking to make our first sales at the time. And who do you approach? Of course, you can go down and try to sell to the large chains of these world hotel groups. You all know the brands, but chances are that these hotel managers won't have a budget, and they have to work within a very kind of fixed constraint. They have to stay within budget, and that budget has been allocated for them, really. So they can only make very small changes to that. For us, interestingly, getting started was easiest with family-run businesses, because there you have the decision maker right at the table. Very often, it's the daughter of a hotelier's family over the last X generations, and she can now make that call for her hotel. So and at the same time, we looked at where would we want to talk to family-run businesses, there where it's pretty competitive. And we realized that the Alps here, so I'm not too far off here in South Tyrol, were actually a great area for us to grow and get started, because you had this combination of family-run businesses who were under intense competitor pressure right now to be cooler than the other hotel, and then also had the financial means to do it. So that's why we got started there. And looking back now, I think it's kind of cool that small family-run businesses were at this kind of forefront of innovation at the time, before we even knew what we were doing, which I think is nice. Now it's a lot different. So most of our growth comes internationally from countries outside of the DACH region, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and it's a lot more rational, our sales approach. So if you think about our sales back then, it was like, hey, you have a tablet for your hotel room, and it wasn't about efficiency. It wasn't about saving room cleaning costs. It wasn't about increasing room service revenue. It was just about having a tablet. And tablets in 2013 were cool. That's one thing you missed in your little retrospective. They were still very cool for consumers and very new. Now they've become commodities, which is good. Very good for us, because people are used to them. But that also means you don't sell tablets just for the reason of tablets. And of course, the other thing, because you just said scaling, is of course just the sheer scale of things. 60,000 rooms, as I said, It's not, it's not crazy amounts of tablets, but if you think about 60,000 tablets, it's a lot more than we had ever dreamed back in 2013. And just the provisioning and and just the whole logistics behind it have posed some interesting challenges for us, and been a lot of fun to work on in the operations over the past years.
Interesting. I want to get to the whole discussion about surfaces, but I want to pick your brains specifically about the opportunities that you see within the operational aspect of running a hotel. And this is, I think, where, I feel like the two of us could have like an interesting exchange. I know you have a very specific product line, and you've kind of in that space for a while, but while you've been out there, selling, and then, you're doing your hustle, what are the opportunities that have come to your sort of volition, and you've kind of seen them, and now you would, let's say, if there's a budding entrepreneur, if there's someone who comes up to you saying, hey Tillman, I'm thinking of doing something within the hospitality space, what are the areas that you think I should look into?
That is a great question. And by the way, I'm interested to hear your end of that question for the prop tech business. I'd like to take a step back from our services, because enough about SuitePad here, but looking in general, like into digitalization, there's some great opportunities out there, and it's always a question of where the value lies that you want to bring to your customers and to your guests. So if you are a city hotel, maybe business hotel, which is, of course, and we can get to that later, but I'm sure pretty much transformed after the pandemic. Efficiency is one of the key things that you want to be serving your clients, and that means maybe having service robots at some point. There are concepts out there. I don't think they're quite yet where they need to be to make a big dent in the efficiency of hotel operations, but it's coming, and it'll be here pretty soon. I'm very sure. And just other things that I wonder why they're not more widespread are, for instance, if you think of a chain or like a hotel group working, why aren't centralized help desks or receptions more of a thing already? We do have customers who already work that way, and I think it's really fascinating to see how this has become a thing over the last few years only, where if you have a request as a guest, you could then be connected not to the front desk, but to a centralized front desk that services different properties around the city, or maybe even around the country, or around the time zone. So those are things that I find are not so often talked about, because at the moment it's all digitalization in terms of, okay, we have booking engines and booking structures, and then of course we're happy to talk about in-room digitalization in terms of media and ordering stuff. But those are two concepts that I think are really interesting, should deserve more attention.
So if you ask
what your end of what happens in prop tech at the moment?
A lot of different things. So, but I just want to set a context of how we are looking at the market, and then where exactly the opportunity lies. So I think the challenge or the problem is that whenever you talk about digitalization for any industry, right, not just hospitality and real estate, but even, let's say, shopping, or even like booking a cab, I think we've always followed this standard template that if you want to digitize something, you look at something that's being done manually, or something that is resource intensive in terms of the personnel, or maybe the time taken is quite long. And then you automatically try to put technology there and say, hey, how can I make it independent of people, and how can we make it independent of all this facade that's needed to run this show? And I feel when it comes to hospitality, because it's a significant asset class within the real estate, we can't have that approach, and you need to look at it differently. And this is why I wanted to zoom out, in the sense that our relationship with real estate, so 99% of our time we spend under some real estate, right? Either you're at a house or you're in an office. If you either you're at a club, if you're sick, you're gonna be at a hospital. you're going to be shopping. If you're really young, you're going to be in a kindergarten or a school. So basically every walking time of your life, you are under some kind of a real estate asset class. With hospitality, I think our lives have become so fluid, so our professional lives and our personal lives, that we don't stop living and we don't stop working at at certain points in time. So even if when you are on vacation, it's not that all of a sudden you have a new routine and you have a new lifestyle and you're a new person. I mean, sure, you might do things out of the ordinary, but largely your the way you operate is fairly the same. And what technology needs to do, or what really innovation needs to happen within the hospitality space, is if I move out of my house and I go to a location for vacation or for whatever, I could still live my life the way I'm used to living at my home. And I think a large number of tourists or travelers or whatever you want to call them, they are looking for that. I feel that's really the definition of convenience. So when you say what is convenience, right? Like, what is a traveler or a tourist looking for convenience? They're looking to lead their life as same as what they were doing at home, but at a new place where they could also do new things. And I think that's the gap which hospitality has not been able to bridge, because a lot of things are still quite templatized and standardized, right? Like you have a TV in the hotel and you have like a package and etc. But I mean, now with this whole remote work going through the roof, now you are in South Tyrol and you don't even know if you're technically on a vacation or if you're working, right? It's somewhere in between. I don't know what you call it. I would say it's life, right? Like you're living life. And I think that's where a lot of opportunities exist, because you don't really switch off. You don't really stop leading your life. So like, for example, at this point in time, you want to, book a cab, or if you want to order grocery, or if you want to order food, or you want to do any of the things that you're used to doing in your regular normal life, you would find it a bit challenging, because the real estate that you are in is not sort of designed for that aspects of your life. So it could be products. I think that's where a lot of value lies, which can be potentially unlocked.
I absolutely agree with that, but it's interesting. You can overdo that point, and I think that's interesting, because we've been having this conversation in the hospitality industry for a few years now, and this whole idea around let's customize the guest experience and tailor it to everyone's needs exactly has become somewhat of a self-serving conversation somehow. But parts of it are completely true, and I think I agree with most of what you said. So even one of our products, if you think about it, we have a SuiteCast product where essentially it's nothing else than Chromecast for the hotel. And there we're not trying to show cool, crazy tech in the hotel room for guests to use and to say, wow, this is so cool, and I'm going to take this home, but more having their home set up and the TV shows that they're watching on Netflix on their own device, bringing that to a hotel room so that they can kind of use it there as they expect it to. But there are limitations to this whole customizability, and I think that's where, when I said originally, people have to ask themselves, what is my core value proposition for my guests? Sometimes, especially in leisure hotels, it's not only convenience, it's about authenticity and about really having an authentic experience. And I'm really interested to see if we have any questions or comments from our audience in this regard, because if you're looking to stay in a hotel, you don't want it to be like for your vacation. If you're you want to see something new, you want to be all in maybe on a certain experience. Maybe not all in. You still want your email and you still want your video calls. So you want internet, right? That's one commodity probably that most of us will want to have. But for instance, I had a conversation with a CIO of a chain. This was, I think, 2 years ago. And the idea there was, hey, couldn't we maybe save the guest's preferred room temperature so that, next time when they come, the room has the exact same, lighting and room temperature. And you think, well, yeah, of course, but what is my favorite, Sushant, what is your favorite room temperature, right? Like, it depends. and also maybe I don't care too much. It's other things that make it really special. Maybe I want to really have like an experienced concierge, someone who can make something really truly that I will remember, like a really nice experience. It might be more interesting to me than just something that is like everywhere else.
So I grew up in 35 degrees as the normal temperature outside. So if you and I travel, I don't think you would really enjoy my temperature settings, my natural habitat.
Okay, yeah, okay, we might have to fight about the AC.
Absolutely. No, but moving on to the next point, you are quite bullish about the role of open source, and I actually, Philip wrote to me because when we published this report about the hospitality trends and the interesting business models within, I'd made a typo where I said that you're deploying your solution through iPads, and Philip very promptly wrote to me saying, no, these are not iPads, we have our own hardware. So what's why are you bullish about open source? I mean, of course, in the context of your own sort of business model, but with respect to like surfaces and in general, like digital services, until now hotels have only been places where digital surfaces were only being used to advertise, and have this you have this TV in the lobby where you're just a sort of something random is playing, like there's a news playing. But what's sort of your take on that digital real estate that is has been just like there in terms of promotional, but now you're putting digital real estate within the rooms, and what are the potential that can unlock?
Great, yeah, no, so maybe to get started with the whole iPad thing, absolutely, right? So that's a question we got a lot. Why do we not use iPads? And I think it's always interesting because lots of us live in sort of like a bubble. I use a few iPad or iOS devices myself in my free time, but you can't forget that, like, I think market share is around 25% or maybe 30% or so. So the vast majority out there is Android, and for a good reason. And by the way, if we went back to 2013, it wasn't quite as clear yet. I think Android might have been a little bit larger at the time by volume.
You seem so jilted about the fact that I didn't include iPad in my research. Are you making me feel bad about missing that point?
We have this all the time. We have this discussion all the time. And I think probably the open source discussion is probably something that that is quickly addressed, at least from our end. We were a big believer in open source in terms of you have a project that you contribute to, and then you take a project that someone else has worked on, you contribute to it, and then therefore can use it free of charge. I think it's a beautiful concept, and I think it's one of the engineering network, or that's the engineering world's greatest experiments that has turned out really well, and we profit off of that a lot, and we also contribute back, of course. Coming to the part of the question with what kind of real estate we're using in rooms and what kind of potential lies with that. Yeah, I think we're just getting started. That's the exciting part. So with digital signage solutions, as you said, like kind of these screens where people could see, which way to the restaurant, or maybe some advertising. If we're just talking about customization there, that's probably not super exciting to most of us. I think we've all learned to ignore most advertising in hotel elevators or at the reception. At least I usually don't go through it, except if I don't have phone reception in the elevator or something. But when it comes to being in the room, there's a lot of things where we believe that the potential still is there to make things a lot better. So talking about the kind of the ease of use of things, just let's stick with it to remote control. Most remote controls are like really terrible UI if you really think about it, because if it's not your TV from home, you're not familiar with it, it's a little weird to use and very hard to clean. And now you imagine if you had that and you could kind of like pre-filter, which and you kind of like tap the right TV station that you want to watch, and then it automatically shows on the TV. That's the kind of stuff where we want to have like a little evolutionary improvement, and I think that's something something that we already do, and where we're going to be improving even more in the future. But there are also new use cases that I don't like. There are a few things we're working on right now which I'm excited about, but I can't talk about. But some things I can talk about, and I think some other things that we're not working on at all that I think are interesting. So let's start with those. The whole AR VR for entertainment is at the moment I think still at a point where people underestimate its capacity. I think it's people scoff at it, but I think in the future lots of our in-room entertainment will be VR, probably VR more than AR, and I'm excited about it because it just makes it a lot more immersive, and we also have more possibilities to maybe bring cool and maybe even relaxing type of scenarios to like a business hotel. Like let's say you have like a tropical island, you just kind of relax there. And I don't know if you saw it, but I think a year ago or so, the IHL, so the Swiss hotel school from Lausanne, they brought out a great video. It was all around the media back then, where like the walls kind of turned into big screens, and you were immersed in this kind of tropical island feeling, and that kind of hit a nerve with me because I think that's where we're headed, where we have more of like an interactive experience with the hotel room, definitely.
Interesting. No, I'm also I always used to think these are just like toys, but then I think that's pretty much been the reaction for every new technology,
right.
Every new hardware that comes out, and I think the first reaction is always, do we even need this? And it takes some amount of time for that hardware to settle in, and then you can.
It's not even
actually, there is one comment here. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
There is one comment here that goes into this direction that I just want to share with you. Here's one comment from Colin, and he says, like, technology needs to be simple to use, quick to learn, as customers have no patience to learn something new. For example, many business customers are challenged with AC controls, let alone digital.
Case in point for the remote control. I think remote controls are inherently probably pretty easy still to use, but I think Colin has a very valid point looking at AC.
I have one more example. Maybe Colin would definitely agree. Printers around the world, any brand, HP, Canon, office printers at WeWork. Why is the interface of configuring a printer and using a printer so freaking complex? And sometimes you can print like one page, but if you want, when you're in a mood to do something fancy where you want to do two-sided printouts, or if you want to change the page size.
That's spoken like a man who just recently tried to print something. But I think Colin has a very good point, and it's as you say, UI is just kind of lacking in many hotel rooms. And I think one very good example that we can probably all relate to, I'm sure you can too, Sushant, is how often have you been in a hotel room? You get it's been a long day, you've been working, you get into that bed, you pull the sheets up, and you want to switch out the light, and where's that light switch? There's always one light somewhere in the back of the room still on, and you're wondering, why is there not an all off button somewhere? And that's something, by the way, we incorporate in our devices because we think it's kind of important. So yeah, UI is definitely, or UX is important. One thing that I wanted to add to the point that you made earlier, Sushant, about like this adoption rate. It's not always linear, right? So you're right. People say it's a toy in the beginning, and they say maybe I don't see the value in it, or it's just like a little thing to play with. It's a gimmick, and then it goes away again. But it doesn't like just go linearly then into the popularity. So if you think, for instance, about QR codes. QR codes were a thing, and then they kind of like they spiked a little bit, and then people had like People had QR code reader apps on their iPhones. I think Android had native support at some point. And then it kind of died off again because no one really used it. It really didn't seem that cool. Even I was one of those short-sighted people saying,
so many people who hate QR codes, and they hate QR codes on business cards. And now you go to restaurants.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And I'm happy to admit I was one of the people who learned my lesson there, because I thought it was dead when it was dead shortly, but then it came back, and I have to say that's it's a nice thing, and it helps a lot.
I'm glad you touched the QR code topic, because I remember there was a GitHub project, or it was an experiment. So the amount of data that could be compressed on a QR code is very limited. So I think somebody was trying to figure out a way where a lot more data could be sort of stored in a QR code. And I don't know if it really worked out or not, but somebody had figured out a way to create QR codes for songs. So a lot of artists were then creating the QR codes for their songs, and then they were just like pasting it all over. So then, you know, when you QR code it, you actually are able to download the song, which is embedded in that QR code. So I was like, okay, this is a smart way for, you know, making distribution easy. But then, of course, I mean, initially you want to get noticed, but then you also want revenue, and then it goes to a different direction. It creates a new problem for you.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good segue to talk about the next part. Do you feel with this whole smartphone era, with everybody having like really cool phones, would you not say that the focus would be more to just, you know, do away with the hardware in hotels and just have some kind of a, like, the software element of it, which is easier to access from the guest's own device? You know, one of the things that I really hate personally is downloading an app for a specific thing. And if Ryanair is listening, you know, every time, you know, they just they force you to download an app, and or even a lot of hotels, right, like to access their Wi-Fi or whatever. How can that sort of whole friction go away? I mean, sure, once you're in the hotel, you're forced to download it. You don't have an option, but it creates like a really horrible experience. I mean, of course, it's not such a big problem, but if I could do away with it.
Yeah. So at least in my experience, I think this whole app conversation has died down a little bit, because most people would agree with what you just said. And it used to be otherwise, right? So especially around, again, transporting back into 2013, people believed that apps were, you know, the way to go, and that everyone would be downloading apps consistently and constantly. Which is now, of course, we know that that's not the case. There's an overabundance of apps. You can hardly, you know, try to navigate the app store and find something useful in there. It's hard. And also, we very rarely see the point in it. So you go to a supermarket, they say, hey, download my app, and you say, no, thank you. And then Ryanair may force you to do it, but as you said, if Ryanair is listening, you know, you're not happy about it. And that's not the great way to start off a guest engagement or customer engagement in any case. So I'm happy that that's not the case anymore, that people are not talking about classic native apps to be downloaded as much. What we do see, and I think rightfully so, is a conversation about progressive web apps and mobile websites. So bringing content to guests' own devices. And one thing that is, you know, really clear, and that I would, you know, love actually, is, you know, if someone could say, you know, hey, you can do all that you do with your hardware, and just like that, you can just transfer it to the guest's own device. If you could truly do that, then I would be gung ho and say, great, let's get rid of, you know, what we're doing in the hardware spectrum right now, because we don't need it anymore. And of course, a lot of development time, a lot of cost going into it, no matter how fun it is, but it just wouldn't make sense. But that's not the case. There are certain things that just require you to have some sort of front end that remains in the hotel, that takes away this critical conversion step from the guests. So what I mean by that is, we just had Colin with his question about, you know, the AC. If you are going to say the AC gets controlled exclusively and only through the guest's phone, that means you are entrusting your guest experience that you want to offer to your guests, and also your hotel staff's nerves. You're entrusting to the guest device that they're bringing, may not be full of charge, may not have data in that market that you're serving, and you're going to have a hell lot of questions to answer there. That's just the AC example. They're more like phone, remote control, but even booking, the booking infrastructure. So For us, the question is not, is it tablet or like a bring your own device solution? It's more, what does a smart combination of this look like going forward? And I think for many of our clients that we work with, they've opted to go only for the tablet solution. Others have opted for both, which I get both approaches because they're meant for different things. Think about, for instance, any type of use case that you have pre-stay before you even check in. Of course, you won't be able to use the tablet there to book services. You will book from your own device. Once you're in the room and you want to control the TV, it's unlikely that you'll get out your phone. It's more, you have more discoverability on the hotel-owned SuitePad device, and of course, this is also the case for all other tablet devices that you have out there.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I always used to think, why would, if somebody's on a vacation or if somebody's in a hotel, why would they bother about if there's a TV or not, or what's really coming on TV? But I think there was a stats which say that guests spend a significant amount of their time watching TV inside the hotel room, and I was just like amazed that like that's a thing. I mean, it's not my thing, but it's a significant thing that people spend significant time when they're traveling watching TV in the hotel room.
Actually, let me solve that little mystery of yours. I'm one of those people. I do not watch TV. I do not watch TV at home at all. I don't even, like, we have a TV at home, my wife and I, but it's not hooked up to any type of like linear TV channel. I know, like the cable thingy that comes out the wall. We don't have that. It's all Netflix and Amazon Prime. But when we're traveling and you're jet lagged, and by the way, I'm looking forward to this again, being jet lagged. But being jet lagged in the hotel, you're there, you're getting ready to go out, and you've just you switch on the TV to just see like, you just kind of have the background noise. You see what's on. It's zero effort. I get it. For me, that's the only time I watch TV.
Is there a B2B opportunity for a company like yours to bring in all of these different all these OTT platforms, right? Like Netflix, Hulu, Disney, and sure, they may not be interested in doing partnerships with like one-off players, but when, let's say, it's a hospitality segment, and if given by your personal anecdotal experience, as well as the larger behavior where a lot of people watch TV in hotels, do you think there's a potential where you would, let's say, partner with Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and have those solutions as part of your experience at the hotels, and then guests can come in and continue watching from where they left off?
So if anyone's watching here or listening from Hulu, Netflix, or Disney Plus, or whoever, yes, absolutely, come talk to us. But no, honestly, we do have some hotels that, for instance, would have the Netflix app pre-installed on their SuitePad devices for guests to use. I'm not a huge fan of that, to be honest, because I think Netflix, we don't have this kind of partnership in place, for instance, with them right now. And if a guest uses the tablet there, they still have to log on with their own credentials or create an account, and that's just kind of not the best experience. So I think the route that we took was, let's get the guests engaged with their own devices for the Netflix app they may already have downloaded, the YouTube app that they have on their phone, to then broadcast or Chromecast to the TV.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And with respect to a lot of other services that travelers and tourists are going to be looking for once they move into once they start traveling again, what are the opportunities you're seeing there? Because I feel local services or local experiences are going to be a huge draw when you're traveling. And in the same breath, I also just wanted to talk to you about the whole behavior that's changing around the booking management. I think what happened with a lot of Airbnb hosts last year, where their bookings were unilaterally cancelled because of the pandemic, and Airbnb decided to refund the guests, but they left the homeowners or the hosts left in lurch. So there's even I think Booking, something similar happened with Booking.com as well. If somebody is listening, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. There's a massive shift, or at least there's a lot of conversation happening that hotel owners now want to build their own booking channels, or at least own their booking channels, so that they can get rid of get rid of the whole revenue sharing that they have to do. You being sort of this interface between the guests and the hotels, do you sort of see an opportunity to acquire guests or acquire customers and then sort of open up a new business line, or is there a potential for that? I think if you could answer both those questions, if you see an opportunity for yourself and then an opportunity in general in that market.
So I think the most interesting part there for I guess most people watching here would be, what could a hotel do there? Because I can't comment so much on like what's happening on the Airbnb side in terms of the bookings. Not something I'm very familiar with. But if you look at, for instance, booking local services during your stay, they're great companies that have been built there already, right? Like think about Get Your Guide and how they transformed the market for local guides. But if you're worried, and if you have, for instance, if you have concierge working for you at your hotel, and you're trying to capitalize on the during stay bookings, I think what we, for instance, tried to do, and where we try to motivate our hotels and our clients to work with us in that way, is to offer their selected, their curated activities to their guests through the SuitePad, for instance. And you can do this through any other channel. But this comes back to our point about being very like having an authentic offering, and not only just trying to link to Get Your Guide and get an affiliate share of that, but to actually be able to offer something that no one else can offer. And even if there were some super sapient AI that could get the same deals that your concierge can get at the restaurant, which is probably a ways off, even then, it's still a luxury to be, to kind of get personal service, even maybe through a digital channel, personal service from your hotel staff and their authentic recommendations and also activities that you can do locally. And I think that's one of the great channels that has been underutilized, I find, over the last few years. So I think you see great opportunities there. And we are trying to be, we're trying to work there for hotels. So we're not getting, we don't really have business interests there, except for enabling our hotels. Do I think there's a space there for more opportunity to create a business? Definitely.
And that also kind of baffles me, and specifically speaking about local experiences. TripAdvisor, even though for a lot of us it's just a way for source experiences or just to kind of find out what's out there, they still make a lot more money by selling experiences, even though the experiences on TripAdvisor are significantly more expensive than compared to Airbnb experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be an interesting sort of angle to look at, because you have all, like, I mean, Get Your Guide raised a significant round last year, and it's kind of becoming a really huge player in that space. You also have a lot of platforms which are sort of aggregating these walking tours. I remember back in 2015 in Berlin, there were quite a few players who were doing these walking tours around the Brandenburg Gate. I don't know if it still exists, but most of them were, freelance marketplaces where, you just had to tip them at the end of it, and it was a bit of an uncertain. But that's really picking up, and I'm always curious to know, are people going for experiences which purely from the concept of price, because at the end of the day the experience is kind of the same. It's like it's either it's a walking tour, or if it's like a photo shoot or whatever, or is there a differentiation there? And then the whole cab booking part, of course, you have mobility services, so not much to sort of play there. But apart from local experiences, what else do you think can be sort of brought into this digital hotel ecosystem?
Wow, that's a big question. I think it always boils down to the what is, again, I'm repeating myself on that point, but at least, but what is the core value proposition and what could be my core value proposition and what is just a commodity that I use the digitalization for. And for me, for instance, mobility and ride ride services in the hospitality field has always been a partnership affiliate kind of deal. I do not see the real value, maybe in some fringe cases where they have like a really cool limousine or helicopter to pick you up in some crazy luxury resort, but that's kind of it. You know, if it's not integrated into the guest experience on that level, like, or at least in that level, then it's probably just something you outsource to a limo service and be done with it. And I think the outsourcing to a limo service is also kind of 90s. Probably it's now just having the guests deal with it via Uber or whatever. So yeah,
my hunch that space is more on the day trip category. I think that's sort of, let's say, a category within the travel space which is kind of fairly overlooked, because most of it is, as you said, you know, it's run by vendors and partners, and it's at a very local scale. And you know, as much as you know, Airbnb and TripAdvisor can invite people to you know, book an experience, the real customization can only happen at a localized partnership level. Because, you know, sure, you might have a template offering that, you know, for one day you can, you know, go to Costa Brava and then, you know, chill around there and, you know, go see those vineyards. But, you know, you want to do something additional or specific, or, you know, merge two experiences, that can only happen if you are buying it through a local partner. It cannot happen through a, you know, tech behemoth where, you know, there is not much room for both the vendor who's willing to be flexible, and as well as for the user, because it's just so standardized and templatized.
I would agree with that.
And I think we're pretty much at the end of the conversation. I think except for Colin's comment, we haven't really got any more questions. But I think if anybody wants to sort of you know, throw in some questions at this point, or maybe ask Tillman and me, if something that we've probably not really addressed, happy to sort of.
Actually, there were some comments, not really questions. So like two people agreed that yeah, people don't really want to download apps, but they just have their phone ready all the time. So that would be the argument against or in favor of apps. Then we had here one comment a little bit earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt you guys, that one attendee from China says we can order food through the QR code. We can access the restaurant menu via the WeChat QR code scan. We can see the menu and place the order. So more comments than questions, but yeah, I just think your discussion was great, and I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, I think WeChat is a whole empire that if we would have started talking about it.
It's so good, it's scary. So whenever I'm in China, I love it, but it's really scary, actually. If we ever think that Google is building an all-knowing empire, WeChat is definitely on par.
Yeah, I think there's just so much possibilities that have unlocked from, you know, from just being a messenger service, and now you can pretty much do everything on it.
All right, guys, I think we are at the end of the session. Thank you so much for this great discussion and some great inputs. And yeah, let's continue this discussion. I think like if you have like just some message to our audience, like if you want to discuss with Tillman or Sushant after the session, yeah, just get in touch. We'll send around the email with contact information. And yeah, I hope we will see each other soon again in one of our webinars.
Yes, thanks Sushant for the question.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for organizing, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, I just want to sign off saying that if you are an early stage prop tech startup, if you're trying to build something within the hospitality space or a real estate space, feel free to reach out. We're sort of working on something really interesting for early stage startups. So if you already have a team, you're working on something interesting, feel free to get in touch.
Cool. With that, I'll conclude the session, and yeah, have a good day, everyone. See you soon.
Bye-bye. Take care. Stay healthy.